distillers popping up all over the state who are looking to manufacture really high-quality product. I think we saw some of that the other night at the agriculture dinner. And it just so happens that in Hampton Roads, the owners of a number of some of the very finest restaurants in Hampton Roads have a sidelight that they would like to pursue in distilling beverages, including bourbon. What this bill would do, Mr. Chairman, in limited fashion is to prevent, number one, a small batch distiller that is seeking the exception to the Tide House law from joining in with any other distillery, which would limit that production to 5,000 gallons a year max, which, as I understand it, is not a great deal. It does not limit or cannot prohibit the sale of any other products in the restaurants that are licensed to sell alcohol. And frankly, Mr. Chairman, the exception we seek here doesn't, we argue, change the three-tier distribution system we've long-standing had in this Commonwealth. What the proponents of this bill would do in this case is to distill their bourbon, sell it to ABC, buy it back with all the other products they buy back from ABC every day, and sell it in their restaurants. And like I said, they have, I think, some of the very best restaurants in Hampton Roads. I think, Mr. Chairman, what we're going to be seeing as we go is that this problem is going to continue. We're going to be seeing more and more small batch distillers growing up all over the Commonwealth who don't want to compete with Jack Daniels, they don't want to compete with the big houses, but yet they want to be able to do their things to bring these products home to Virginia, tag them as Virginia products, which we're very proud of, and yet be able to do business with, in their restaurants as well. With me, Mr. Chairman, is Mr. Carl Dorman, who is one of the co-owners of these restaurants, who himself is Carl? He is a long-standing distiller. At one point, Mr. Chairman, I think he had the Virginia Beach Brew House that the chairman had something about. And it is, basically this bill comes at his request and upon his initiative. So Mr. Dorman would speak in favor of the bill, Mr. Chairman. Before I turn it over, do any of the members have any questions?
You don't want the committee to have any questions at this point? Okay, we're good testimony.
And let me say this, I've had a lot of good conversation with some of my colleagues and the distributors. I understand that they're opposing this bill. I don't take this personally, and I don't think they do either. But as we've discussed, this doesn't seek to change what I believe is the essence of a three-tier system. It doesn't seek to upset that. It seeks to create small exceptions for people like Mr. Dorman here, who are going to be and remain small batch distillers. So with that, gentleman, Carl Dorman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully I can preemptively answer some of the questions that may arise with this. And I think one of the most important things, I've been in restaurant business. I'm 47 now, but since I was 15, and I've always had a real passion for distilling. Used to have a brewery in Virginia Beach as well, a Tap House Grill and Brewery in Virginia Beach, and closed that down, and have since specialized in the restaurants. And as we expanded and wanted to get more into my interests of distilling and passion there, that seems to be our only hurdle. The most important thing that we're trying to accomplish here that I wanted to address is that we're not trying to alter any of the existing systems in sense of production and distribution in all of the systems that are already set up in Virginia. Every distillery in Virginia and outside of Virginia still has to go through the Virginia ABC, which is absolutely what we'd like to do. We don't want to circumvent any of that. We don't want to purchase directly from the distillery to the restaurants, which isn't allowed. We simply want the right to be able, as licensees, to purchase a product made by me as a principal in the distillery as well as the restaurant. So all the other systems staying in place, that's the only exception we're reaching for.
Thank you. Is anyone else in here speak in favor of this measure? Is anyone here to speak in opposition to this measure?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Scott Johnson, I'm Legislative Counsel for the Virginia Beer Wholesalers Association. We are opposed to this legislation. I do want to thank the patron. He was kind enough to share it with us before session, and we told him that, you go back to this bill and you look on lines 66 through 69, and I just remind the committee, that's a stated policy of the Commonwealth to recognize the three-tier system. And the problem with this attempt is if you make this change, the battle is going to become 5,000 this year, 7,500 next year. We've seen that. We ask you to stick with the system. Don't let vertical integration violate it. It served us well, and don't go down the road taking a little bite at a time. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Chuck Duvall with Wine Wholesalers. I would echo what Mr. Johnson said.
most of you around here for the privatization fight a few years ago, and I'm not an attorney, and don't play well on TV, but I think you start opening the doors here on the distilled spirits, you might run into problems that might come back and bite you down the road. And I think Mr. Albo would certainly see through that. But anyway, we would appreciate it if you would see fit not to report this bill. We would say the patron has been very forthcoming in sharing it all with us.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to this measure? Okay, Mr. Harris?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. We commit to the committee for its determination, and we thank the comments from both sides. Appreciate you.
Okay, any discussion at the committee? Chair will entertain a motion. Dr. Albo?
So these are all really great ideas, and sir, I think you have a super idea, but the problem is, if you could sit here for as long as a lot of us have, what happens is, as soon as we make an exception for one person, then it's a lineup for year after year after year after year. So we make it for distilled spirits, and then somebody who makes beer is gonna want it, then somebody who makes wine is gonna want it, and then like they said, it's gonna be 5,000, and somebody wants 7,000. And so, just from my standpoint, a while ago, I just decided to say no. And so I know it's not going to sound fair to you, but it's the system that was created in the 1930s, and either we have to scrap the whole system or we have to stick with it. So I'm going to make a motion to, can't make a motion to lay on the table, but I'll make a motion to PBI.
Okay. There's a motion, a second, PBI. I believe that's debatable. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor, PBI of the bill, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Have you talked about co-locating?
Yeah, he did. We're still working on that.
Delegate Corey.
I think there's a problem with the legal.
Yeah, we're talking about his office.
You have House
Good
Bill
evening.
2090, right?
I was trying to decide whether I should say good afternoon or good evening, but I think it's getting dark out, so good evening. Thank you, Del Knight, for allowing me to put this by, and then, I know you didn't plan it, but the time that you're beginning today is, I appreciate it. Anyway, I have Bill 2090, which, like everybody says, is a very simple bill. Essentially, what this does is it adds to the requirements of filing that a charitable organization has to make in the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture is where all filings from the nonprofits and charitable organizations go. And if there are complaints, you have to go to the AG's office. And this adds the requirement that a charity has to state what percentage of the money they took in goes to their charitable purpose.
Thank you. Any questions at this point? Delegate Alba?
This is a great bill. I wish I had thought of it myself, but I will be telling everybody I did, I'm sure.
Thank you. I have a charity you can
But yeah, but actually, what's even better about it is it's not even going to take these charitable organizations much effort because they have to file these things on the IRS 990 anyways. And so if they start lining this extra paperwork, it really isn't because they've already got to do it. So,
Well,
great idea.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this bill? Ready?
Lead report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there's a motion to report, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oh,
Thank you, Delegate.
thank you.
Delegate Rush.
Yeah.
We have a
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out that is my seatmate. She's a very, very smart individual. Mr. Chairman, I'm here again with House Bill 1743. It's the historic set of my houses. And at the committee's request, we went and tightened down the definition. And so there is an amendment, and so if y'all would like to look at that. Mr. Chairman, what the bill, or what the amendment does is allow these nonprofit cinema houses to have their own ABC license. And we've defined the historic cinema houses as a building built before 1970, primarily used, designed for movie cinemas.
Okay, don't be rushed. Hold on for just a minute.
Mhm.
We have the substitute before us. Would y'all like to adopt the substitute?
Second.
All in favor of substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Don't be rushed. The substitute's before us.
Just to reiterate, this is the same bill that we heard last Thursday, but we did tighten up the definition of, we made it a historic cinema house, which most of these are. They're still nonprofit, and this defines those as cinema houses built before 1970.
Okay, is there any questions or paper? Anyone here to speak in favor of this measure? Anyone to speak in opposition to this measure? Mr. Lisk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Tom Lisk, representing the Virginia Restaurant Lodging and Travel Association. And we appreciate the efforts of the delegate to tighten the language. It does give us a little more comfort, but we still have just the philosophical concern that once again the legislature is creating a new license to sell alcohol with no corresponding food requirement. And as you notice in the language, it does say with or without meals. So, in fact, in line 554, so you're creating for the first time a movie theater license to allow the sale of alcohol without food, with just popcorn, I presume, unlike AMC theaters, Regal Cinema, and other theaters around Virginia that have do in fact sell food and meet the food requirements to have a restaurant license in order to have the privilege. So our concern, as I said, has been abated somewhat because you're now restricting it to only historic theaters, and we do appreciate that in many communities it is important to try to save these structures, but I can't, as you all know, we have these battles each year about how much food a restaurant has to sell in order to have the privilege to sell alcohol. It concerns us as an industry as we see more and more licenses granted to those who have no corresponding food requirement. And that's our only concern with this bill.
Delegate Alba has a question.
Tom, if we struck either with or without meals, does that mean it then automatically falls into the beer wine minimum, which is what, $2,000 a month of food?
No, because the $2,000 minimum a month in the ABC regulations applies to restaurant licenses. There are also separate requirements for gourmet shop licenses. Without a corresponding regulatory requirement of a minimum food sale requirement, then they would have no requirement whatsoever, unless you put it in the statute itself, or if later ABC adopted regulations to impose a food sale requirement.
Delegate Alba.
So if I wanted to make Delegate Rush's bill like things we've done before, if I lifted the language from 551 and plopped it in here and made it the same as a dinner theater, would that do the trick?
It would do the trick, but in all fairness to Delegate Rush and the people he's trying to help, I don't know that they're equipped to be able to sell food in some of these theaters. I would defer to the delegate on that point, but I don't want to lead you down the path to believe that you're passing something that would help them if you're not.
I would agree, and I appreciate his comments, and we've spoken about this before. This is more like the performing arts licenses that we've done in the past. This is a very tough business model. It's a nonprofit. It's a historic building. Have a lot of upkeep and costs. This is to help this business model so we can maintain these historic, mostly downtown movie theaters, for the next generation.
Yes, sir.
So, can we set this aside for a moment and I can talk to you?
Suspend for a minute. And Mr. Reed, I talked to Delegate Alba and his substitute, Maria, on performing arts, the Norva International motion, there's no one else here to speak, Delegate Hauswell.
Yes, sir, I'd move that we report.
Okay, there's a motion to report. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Delegate Elbow.
I like Kay's.
I really meant that.
Kay's bill was a lot.
Dave's very smart.
Is Danny Marshall here? Okay. Delegate Peters?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to start off by saying that Kay actually is the chief co-patron for my bill, so you should probably just report this without any consideration whatsoever. First thing, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I have an amendment for HB 2029 that was given us by ABC. And that's on page 1, line 37, after event, insert licensed by the board. And again on page 2, line 107, after event, insert licensed by the board.
I had the wrong bill before me. I still have Danny Marshall's. Let me get this for a second.
No.
2029. You said line 37.
Yes.
Event.
Just add licensed by the board. And again on 107.
Maria, have you got that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Committee, do y'all understand the amendments? I'd like to get the amendments before us.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the amendments, say aye. Okay, the bill is amended before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, all this would do was, again, the reason why I bring this up, Mr. Chairman, is I actually attended a great event in the Commonwealth, and there was a whiskey booth, a distiller's booth there, and I was not allowed to taste anything. And I just thought that was a complete travesty of justice. So what this is going to do is allow a distiller to do the typical pour at the site of an event conducted for the purpose of featuring and educating the consuming public about spirits production. So that's, again, fairly straightforward and simple, Mr. Chairman, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions at this point? We'll hear some more testimony from those for and against. So, anyone here to speak in favor of this measure?
Mr. Chairman, Curtis Goldberg for the Virginia Distillers Association. The bill would allow, right now, if you go to a wine festival and you taste something you like, you can buy it, a bottle to go home with. You could do that today in Virginia with spirits if ABC set up a store there. But they don't, and one of the reasons that they don't is that there's a provision in the code that says they have to use state employees to operate it. All this does is it does the same thing that happens at the distillery stores. It would be an ABC store at the site of the event that is operated by the distillery people. All the money is deposited into ABC's bank accounts, and then ABC writes them a check for a commission on the same.
Are these people who are at this site event, are they pretty much considered to be, for the purposes of that, employees of the ABC, like a contracted employee?
Yes, we would anticipate there would be a contract between ABC and the distiller appointing its personnel as agents of the ABC.
Okay. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this measure? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this measure? Okay. You have anything to add, Billy?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Voted out.
So, to maintain consistency, I think that Delegate Freitas and Curtis have set up a system that is consistent with existing law. I mean, a private person is not allowed to sell retail alcohol, but what they're doing is they're creating an ABC store at these sites. No one expects them to have somebody from ABC drive up from Richmond and actually do it, so they're contracting employees for that time period. All the money is going straight to the ABC, so there's no real danger of people like, you know, pocketing the money illegally. So I think I mean, I'm trying to put this all in my head, but I think he's hit all the, I think delegates hit all the check boxes that, so it seems pretty good to me.
And it still has to be licensed by the board and follow their regulations. Okay, Delegate Torrey?
Position of ABC, please.
Mr. Chairman, Travis Hill, we do not have a position on the bill. As you just described it, currently distilleries can have stores on their premises. This bill, and in those stores, they are agents of the agency, and they can sell their products that they produce on site. This bill extends that privilege to these other licensed events.
Okay, committee, what's your pleasure? There's a motion and a second to report. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Delegate Marshall, you weren't here a while ago, but you're my chairman, so you're next.
You have a good report?
Won't go that far yet.
Thank you. This is House Bill 1694, and what we are attempting to do is that there is a Gamble Science Center has an annual fundraiser, and so this is just happened a couple of weeks ago. They provide wine at this event, and what they would like to do is to offer the unopened bottles of wine. They would auction those off at this event one time a year. So I would like to at the appropriate place, and so maybe at line 111, it says authorized to sell wine one time per year. So that, we can maybe, we have some people who's worried about we're going to do this every week. So if that's the appropriate place for it. That's why I asked you.
Delegate Allen?
I think if you do that, you need to make sure it's the nonprofit who can only do it one day a week, because through the licensees, every time a nonprofit has a new event, it will be a separate license. So Maria, how do you think you do that? Where is he gonna put it?
You're just gonna put it on 111 after to sell wine?
Oh, could it be on line 111, it says association conducting annual fundraiser?
I just take it at the end of line 112.
Maria, we'll defer to your judgment.
Because it's licensees who are nonprofit corporations conducting shall also be authorized to sell wine, closed containers, parts fund to persons who they may be off premises, provide, well, no more than one per year, one fundraising activity per year.
We know the intent. You're
Well,
gonna dress
yeah,
it up,
put it-
make sure it's straight between here and full committee.
Yeah, I'll offer them to do it.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the amended bill is before us. Delegate Marshall, that was a concern we had, so thank you for being preemptive on that strike.
Okay, thank you. So again, this is the Gamble Science Center, their annual event, that do this one time a year.
Okay, is there anyone here, any questions? Okay, anyone here to speak in favor of this measure? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this measure?
Katie Hellebush with the Virginia Wine Council, and we do have some concerns that this might be a slippery slope that we're going down. I think that Delegate Marshall's amendment helps ease some of our concerns, and I've talked with him that we feel like there are some non-legislative approaches that they can take, but certainly that amendment helps ease some of our concerns. So I just wanted to share that with y'all.
Marshall?
The local ABC agent was the one who suggested us to come with this language. And so he was the one who helped develop this language. So we're yielding to his counsel.
Okay. Committee, any questions or what's your pleasure? Okay, there's a motion to report in a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. Have a good night.
Delegate Bullock?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 2433.
2433. Give us just a second to get it before us. Everybody got it? Okay, Delegate Bullock.
Thank you very much. And this is about as technical a bill as you could possibly get. What it does is it simply amends the code to make sure that cider is treated the same as wine, which is traditionally what we've done, except when we explicitly mean that it's otherwise. As the code's been amended over the years, as cider has gained in popularity, we've had different references to wine and cider that could cause confusion in the future with the enforcement of ABC. And so this is just an attempt to make sure we've gone through and vetted it and ensure that when we say wine, we mean cider unless otherwise expressed. Wine Council worked closely with ABC to go ahead and vet this, especially with Maria to make sure that it worked. If you're interested, the major points here is that in the definition of wine in 4.1-100, we included a catch-all to say that wine includes cider. We also included the same catch-all in 4.1-213 dealing with the manufacture and sale of cider. In section 2.1214, for some reason, cider is mentioned separately from all other alcoholic beverages ever known to man. And so we went ahead and got rid of the specific reference to cider there. There are some areas where we're dealing with gourmet stores, growlers, and sampling, where there are differences with regard to how wine and cider are considered. So for instance, growlers are actually the same for cider as they are for beer, and it just goes through and makes sure that we're crystal clear on how that works. Katie Hellebusch is here to answer any questions, but that's essentially what the bill does, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Okay. Speak to the measure? Okay.
Hello again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Katie Hellebusch with the Virginia Wine Council, and this is truly a cleanup bill. This does not intend to make any policy changes. Throughout the year, we just had several items where we received calls, and so I kept flagging the different sections, and I handed in the ABC book, and we thought we'd bring a cleanup bill to make sure there was no confusion.
Okay, anyone else here to speak to this measure? Okay. Ready? Okay, there's a motion to report. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, any nays?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Is Delegate Campbell here? You ought to at least be about here humming.
You still wanted me to sing?
No, sir. Let's see, we've got 1926. Delegate Campbell.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, what we're doing with House Bill 1926 is seeking to create an exemption for municipal-owned golf courses from the food sales requirements. And let me tell you a little bit about the history of how this bill came about. In the town of Marion, there is Holston Hills Community Golf Course, which used to be Holston Hills Country Club. And in 2010, like a lot of other golf courses across the country, that club fell on hard times financially, got themselves into a situation where their property was about to be foreclosed on. And the town of Marion stepped in and purchased the property. And the reason they did it is because they viewed that facility as being a critical amenity to economic development and industrial recruitment. And a lot of executives of industry like to play golf. So when they're considering locating an industry in a community, that's one of the first things they look for. So the town of Marion, again, purchased the property, and they've been operating that for about 5 years. There are those of us that, I don't know how many of you play golf, but I certainly do, and I will tell you that I view alcohol as a critical coping mechanism for playing the game. So having that ability there is often important, and the problem that the town of Marion has is that they have a regular restaurant license, but during the golf season, they don't have a problem meeting those thresholds. It's when they're out of season that they have a difficult time, and they are forced to deactivate their license. And then it's a pretty extensive administrative burden to reactivate again. In addition, there's a huge community, a congregation room, if you will, that is at the facility. And they want to use that for purposes of holding corporate events or whatever the case may be. And during the winter months, they're prohibited from, they can do that, but they don't have the ability to be able to provide alcohol. So essentially what they're asking for is just an exemption from being subject to those food sales requirements. And keep in mind, the grill they have there, I mean, they serve hot dogs and beer nuts. It's not like that they're a restaurant by any stretch of imagination.
So, the problems are that they're not doing enough business in the winter time. And so, how does that mean they can't comply? They can't make minimum food sales?
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
Okay. And then the second problem is what? Or is that the main problem?
Well, that's the big problem, and then they have to, it's been forcing them to deactivate their license, and then they have to jump back through the administrative hoops to reactivate it, and it's also, it's causing them to not be able to operate their room, their congregation room in the winter months to entertain corporate events or public events and to be able to serve alcohol there.
Because they deactivate their license, then they can't do the corporate event.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, so, I'd like to solve your problem, but I don't want to create a problem in my district where some city-owned golf course decides that they're going to be able to get all this stuff.
And I tried to look at narrowing down the exception, obviously. The problem is there's 191 towns in Virginia. I tried to think in terms of, well, let's limit the population. Marion, unfortunately, is the 21st most populous town of that 191. Now, I will say that in looking at Golf Magazine online, which has a listing of all the municipal-owned all golf courses in Virginia for that matter, it looked like about a third of the public golf courses were municipally owned. Most of about a dozen of those were in towns more populous than Marion. So you're talking about probably 30 to 40 facilities ultimately that would fall within this exemption, assuming they have a suitable facility to do this. Some have golf courses but have nothing other than a
You guys need fun stuff to do there. I mean, we're trying to keep Marion fun, right?
Well, not only that, I mean, understand too, this does go to economic development. Now, you know all the problems we're having in Southwest, and we're doing everything we can to try to diversify and recruit industries that are other than coal-related. And, you know, having that amenity is awfully important to the community to do that.
Can I throw something out, Mr. Speaker? So,
I'm not a speaker yet.
Mr. Speaker wanted me. Seems to me the real problem is the timing, that these guys have a legitimate problem where with the down season, they can't make the minimum 2,000. I would prefer to go down the route where we solve that problem than just say that every municipal golf course in a city or town can get the exemption. Like, I'm just kind of talking out the top of my head, like be able to apply for some kind of exemption for certain months, off-season or something like that. Well, I think that you're the boss, Mr. Speaker Wannabe. I'd like to hear from everybody, so if we do carry over for the day, we kind of know all the problems are being faced.
Is anyone else here to speak to the measure? For it? Anyone in opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Subcommittee, Tom Lisk, representing the Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association. And we're sympathetic because in the tourism industry, we have experience with seasonal establishments that have no problem meeting food requirements during most of the year, but during winter months or off-season, then they don't have the patron flow in order to meet it. And if that's what this bill did, we would have far less concern. But this bill, while it requires the establishment to be licensed as a restaurant, it actually would exempt them from any food sale requirements whatsoever 12 months out of the year. So it could be basically a watering hole drinking establishment that has a kitchen that never produces an ounce of food. That's our first concern. The second concern is it's just simply unfair competition. This would be granting a special privilege, essentially a full bar, to municipalities that private industry would not have the same privileges. And yet we compete, our hotels, our restaurants compete to host these same corporate events, special events, what have you, as well as for-profit golf courses. So for those reasons, we would have concern with this. If the patron or the subcommittee wanted to take a look at the bill to rewrite it, to try to address the seasonal aspect, I think we'd be happy to try to work with the patron to do that. That would reduce our concerns significantly.
Sir.
Eddie of the AIB, Virginia Assembly Independent Baptist, we're concerned about picking winners and losers. And I understand municipalities trying to help golf courses. But again, they should be wise and careful about what they're doing. And you folks are trying to be careful about how you're carrying this. And that's our plea, is that you continue to be judicious in your choosing. Thank you.
Can I ask a question of Maria? How many banquet licenses is a person allowed to get, or entity? Isn't there a limit per year? There's no limit per year? Travis, no? You could not get a banquet license if you're already a licensed, right? If you're already a licensed restaurant, you can't get a banquet license. Right. So, we're just throwing out ideas, right? I'm not saying I'm going to do this, but what if we allowed people to go dormant so they wouldn't have to refile, and then during the dormant period, they would be able to apply for banquet licenses?
I haven't had a chance, Travis Hill, Virginia ABC, haven't had a chance to speak with the patron when he talks about, he used the word surrendering the license, but I didn't know if it was just the mixed beverage portion or if it was the entire license. Because we currently allow places like down at the beach, they will surrender their mixed beverage privilege and they won't serve alcohol during that time. They will continue to serve wine and beer. They still have that food minimum of $2,000, and then they bring the mixed beverage back when the season starts back up. So I don't know if that would solve, if we had that practice in Southwest, if that would solve it, or if it's more about they just don't have enough food sales overall to even support the requirements for wine and beer.
Can I ask Mr. Kelly again real quick? Your problem is it's just a golf course and there's no reason for someone to go there in January.
There's no foot traffic, and I think the limit is $4,000 per month for the mixed beverage, $2 for the wine and beer. They don't even meet the $2 for the wine and beer.
If I may, Delegate Albo, if they surrendered both the mixed beverage and the wine and beer license during the winter months, then they could still host corporate events, private parties, nonprofit sponsored charitable events, with the charity or the host of the private party getting a banquet license for each of those events. They still wouldn't be able to sell alcohol for other just patrons coming in to hang out, if you will. But they would have that option, but I don't think that meets the needs of what the delegate's looking for.
And that does raise one other issue too that they addressed with me. You know, they have club members still that pay annual memberships there that support the operation of the course. And a lot of them are complaining that, you know, there are times during the winter months when they want to come out and play, you know, they don't even have the ability to be able to have a beer during that period of time.
hear something else. But I think you actually have a legitimate problem. I don't think you're somebody who come in here trying to get some kind of special thing to make money. You're trying to, you got a legitimate problem. You don't have foot traffic during the winter.
This isn't a proprietary business by any stretch of imagination, so.
I would move that we would just pass this by for the day. If you could think of something that would let you go dormant, I'm not quite sure I'm gonna be able to solve the guys who want to drink when they play in January. Yeah, I probably can't solve that problem, but I would be interested in doing something that would allow you guys to be able to have special event, go dormant, be able to have special events, and then re-up in the spring on regular. Because it sounds like we're almost doing that in Virginia Beach anyways, we're half doing that in Virginia Beach already.
Delegate Campbell, I think you see the flavor for the committee. We don't want to open this up.
No, I
We certainly want to help you. I seem to think that we'll have another meeting next week, and you come see some of us in Maria in off time. We're going to do what we can to help you.
I will do so. Thank you. Please, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, back to the day.
Thank you.
Where do we go now? Okay, Delegate Robbins, you like to present your bill? Stay there.
Mr. Chairman, there is a substitute for the bill.
Okay, everyone have a substitute form? And, just have a motion on the substitute. Let's get it for us. You want to do a substitute? Okay. Do I hear a second? Second. Okay. All in favor of substitute, say aye. Aye. Substitutes for us. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, what this will do is, there's, with the amendments, and I'm going to let someone in the audience probably discuss the amendments. Just, they came from ABC this today and yesterday, so this is the first time I saw them when I came in. Basically, what we want to do for the wineries and breweries, increase from 4 to 8, the number of banquet licenses they can have for events that occur in a 1-year period. And then there were some, so I will let either Maria go over the amendments, so make sure we catch them all.
Okay, Maria, you want to let us know exactly what this substitute does?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Basically what this does is currently breweries can get a banquet license. And what this does is, under exception to tied house, it extends it from limited to no more than 4 a year to 8 a year, essentially. And then makes technical changes because a special event is a term of art, so they're not holding a special event. And then we just changed on the taxes on the license for these banquet licenses. For regular folk, they pay $5, and then for breweries that get a banquet license, they pay $100. So we just cleaned up the language related to special events, but essentially what the bill does
claimed it from the entity. It's not, because they've got subsets of this entity, 8 is 8, to make a long story short. And the wineries already have this? Maria?
I don't know, Mr. Chairman, I can have to check. Yeah.
Travis?
The wineries have remote privileges, Mr. Chairman, so they have something similar that they can do.
Okay, is there someone here to speak in favor of this bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Jeff Smith. I represent the Virginia Manufacturers Association and the Virginia Craft Brewers Guild Suction membership. I'll be brief in these late hours this evening. This bill is an attempt to modernize and bring forth a better working license scheme so that the current practices in the marketplace can better perform and provide the education and exposure of their products as it changes more frequently now with regard to flavorings and with regard to the seasonal changes. I have 2 speakers from the membership, and we'll be brief, that's why I was brief, that would like to give you an example of why this bill is needed. I first have with me Mr. Sean Phillips with Spencer Devon Brewery in Fredericksburg. And then I have Mr. Eric McKay with Hardywood.
Okay. Yes, sir. Which one are you?
I'm Sean Phillips. How are you, Mr. Chairman?
In that order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, in that order. As he said, I'm Sean Phillips. I'm the owner of Spencer Devon Brewing. We've been in existence for 2 years now. April 1st is our birthday. We like to pride ourselves as a brewery with a kick-ass restaurant. So we do have a full-service restaurant as well. We went our first year without using a banquet license. Basically what happened was as we progressed through the year, we kept on saying, should we use this banquet license now? No, let's hold it. There may be a better opportunity. Having the opportunity to have 8 throughout the course of the year gives me plenty of opportunity to use all 8 of them effectively. For events like we're doing for Fredericksburg on St. Patrick's Day, the city council came to me and asked that I put on a St. Patrick's Day festival for the city. And using my license, I'm able to do that, not only promote my craft, but also to promote the county and the community that I'm involved in. Craft beer is a community sport, and I'm proud to support it, and I'm proud to do my art and share it with the community that I love.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Eric McKay, president of Hardywood Park Craft Brewery and chair of the Virginia Craft Brewers Guild. A number of our members are reluctant to utilize this very effective marketing tool because of the scarcity of them. They only have 4. The ones that are using it in a way that we think really helps to promote the brands that are driving the future of Virginia's craft brewing industry. For our examples at Hardywood, in the past year we've used it for a keg and oyster festival, partnership we did with a local restaurateur that helped to draw quite a few people in from out of town. We've used it for a running race, events where our participants may use adjacent property where we do not currently have a banquet license. Typically for our events, generally 40% of visitors will come from out of town, 20% from out of state. We think this is a huge tourism draw. It brings people into the state. These people are often generally spending about $7 to $10 at a brewery, and then they're staying in local hotels, staying at local restaurants. So we see this as being very beneficial overall to the economy, and certainly a great way to continue driving the burgeoning craft brewing industry in Virginia.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor? Anyone? No? In favor? Katie? Or opposition?
Katie Hellebush with the Virginia Wine Council, and we are fine with this bill since it includes our wine manufacturers as well.
Yeah, if you look at line 23 of beer and wine. Chairman, members of the Subcommittee, Tom Lisk, represent the Virginia Restaurant Lodging and Travel Association. I just want to express just a couple concerns about the bill. We supported many years ago when they first created this special event license for craft breweries. Because back then breweries were basically manufacturing beer, and we oftentimes were the retailers, and they were great business partners and still are to this day. But more and more we see the brewery industry evolving, where they are retail locations selling beer, competing with restaurants, and that's fine. I mean, competition is what made this country great. But now they're looking to add and expand a privilege that restaurants don't have. Capital Ale House, a restaurant located in Fredericksburg, Harrisonburg, Richmond, and other locations, they sell hundreds of beers. They can't go create a special event and sell all their different beers and use that as a tourism promotion event, but the breweries can, and now they're looking to expand that privilege. And so that kind of unfairness in terms of competition gives us some pause. The other thing I would just note, and another trend we're seeing in the craft brewing industry in Virginia, and it's a reflection of their popularity, and I applaud them, but we're starting to see breweries opening second and third locations. Maybe we'll see fourth and fifth in the future. And it concerns us because this bill does not make it clear that the privileges of these 8 times a year is limited to the brewery as opposed to limited to each licensed location. Up until yesterday, ABC could not confirm one interpretation or another. I've been told now that they have a standards committee interpretation saying that this is limited to the manufacturer, not to the licensed location. But I'll just tell you, I've not seen that in writing, and it's not been published as a guidance document, so it doesn't have the force and effect of law. And over the years, the ABC has often reversed their standards committee interpretations. So to the extent that you want to do this, and you want to limit it to 8 times a year, I would simply ask that you provide some clarification in the bill that 8 times a year applies to the manufacturer without regard to how many licenses they own directly or through subsidiaries, so that you don't have a Hardywood, which is a terrific brewery, but if they have 3 licensed breweries, we wouldn't want to see them be able to do this 24 times a year, and so that would be our concern.
Okay, Maria? That was my question originally, because I wanted 8 to be 8, and I talked to the patron. Maria, could you tell us what an amendment would look like and where it would be for 8 times per year per manufacturer?
I think, Mr. Chairman, it would probably go on page 2 at the end of line 28. And then add in sort of the idea that Mr. Lisk expressed before he sat down. But I didn't, I'll just have to work on the words that are not coming to me right now to solve this, but.
Yeah.
Well.
Well, I wonder if it does cover it, because on line 27, such manufacturer shall be limited to no more than 8 banquet licenses or such events per year.
The concern with that, Mr. Chairman, is a manufacturer could be a holding company or it could be a subsidiary. And if it's a subsidiary, then the sister companies, which are all owned by the same holding company, would each be considered a manufacturer, and therefore you would have 24 times if you had 3 licenses. We certainly could offer some language just to make it clear that the manufacturer is limited regardless of the number of subsidiaries or licenses held directly or indirectly, and I don't think that does violence to the intent of the patron or to the proponents.
Okay. Maria, what I think we would like to offer is conceptually, you know what we need,
Yes, sir.
and what we want, and then we'll, if the committee does pass this amendment, then you'll have a chance to work on it, present it to us before full committee.
Okay.
Okay. So, does the committee understand?
I'll vote on the concept of making sure that manufacturer means second new concept.
Okay, hold on just a minute, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, let me just say that I thought that was coming in this draft this evening. We are totally fine with that, but not to oversimplify it. Let me just state this, in the case of Hardywood, just as an example, they have a location in Richmond, and they have a location in Goochland. Our intent was to go from 4 to 8, not 16. That was our intent all along. And we thought that this evening's draft, which I just saw, was working in that direction, so we're fine with that.
Marie, we're on the same page, so unless there's any objection to this.
Mr. Chairman, Brett Massey, one other point that we've seen some language floating and for legislative services to understand, what we would not want to catch would be any language about common ownership, because there are brewers that own wineries. There are wineries that have common ownership. So the manufacturing license is the important part, but not the ownership part. That's what we're trying to make sure we don't capture. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, Maria? Okay. Right, and we'll get another bite of this apple, and Maria, you let us see this, please, for full committee. Okay, any discussion on the motion? The motion is before us. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Okay. Now, the amended bill is before us. I think everyone has spoke at the beginning to speak. Now we have the bill before us. Okay. You got a second to the motion? Okay. Everyone understand what we're voting on? The bill as amended, we're going to look at it before we submit to full committee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Delegate Alvo, which one would you like to carry first? 1526?
The big giant ABC one, I'd like to put off to the week because they're still ironing out the details. And if we get everybody to iron out the details, it means we won't have to do any work.
Without objection?
The big giant authority bill.
Okay.
Which one is it?
2359 without objection, back for the day. Are we okay with that? Okay.
The next one is a substitute. So, already reported out, do we adopt this? Oh, this, you just want to, okay, yeah.
You're going to explain.
Okay, so this is the bill that deals with a situation where you keep on having these people coming and asking for special exceptions to the ratio because they are performing arts facilities and no one goes there to eat a steak, they go there to see a show. And you recall that Rush had one and Yost had one, we keep on adding. And then at some point, when Luke and I were at the ABC study committee, we thought maybe there's a way that we can draft guidelines for all of these. So instead of having to hire a lobbyist and come down and get your special exception, that there would be a set of rules that everyone knew they could follow. And so we decided to make it performing arts. And we had these big, long discussions last week. And we came up with this in concept, and we wanted to look at it to make sure it was what we thought it was before we recommended the committee. So in line on page 7, performing arts. You recall originally mine said live music, but then we thought it's really the same if you had theater, dance, comedy. So the definition of performing arts includes music, dance, comedy, theater, or other similar performance. Then Entertainment, page 6. So then we're trying to tighten it up, and this is the main thing. Remember, we didn't want cheaters. We didn't want someone just to stick some lousy guitar player like me in a corner on a stool playing Kumbaya over and over again and then call it a performing arts facility. So we also wanted to change the name from performing arts facility to a live entertainment venue so it didn't get confused with another thing in the code called performing arts. So we call it live entertainment venue. That means the establishment is devoted exclusively for the bona fide live performance performing arts, and I just told you what that definition is, which is open to the public no more than 4 days in a calendar week. At least 75% of the tickets sales for any performance at the venue must be purchased at least 12 hours in advance. And then through email, we had a couple people mention there would be a scam you could run where if you were the owner of the facility, you could go sell, if you wanted 100 people to go, you could go sell 75 tickets for a penny and get your 75%. So we decided that what it would have to be is a real market value of cost of the ticket. So the ticket price for the performance is based on the fair market value of the performance.
Might be a penny if you were playing.
Well, that's one of the problems with the definition, but we couldn't come up with anything different. But I think that this would give the ABC the ability to call you-know-what on someone who's faking it.
What we did is last week, we passed this bill out, we reported this, we kept it in the bosom of the subcommittee to let everybody on the committee see it. Can I ask the committee first? I believe this was exactly the intent. I believe it's exactly what we discussed. Committee concur? Okay, and I probably shouldn't ask anyone in the audience, but anyways, I don't see anyone got their hand waving like crazy. Mr. Reed, I know you came a long way. I will give you a little bit of
Mr. Chairman, I'm Bill Reed with AEG Live, the Northern and National. I appreciate you indulge me for a second. It was brought out to my attention with Mr. Lisk. I know we're grandfathered in here. I would like to have that grandfather also continue on with our license goes to 2 a.m. I noticed in here that he brought to my attention that if we were in this, we would be subject to the 1:30, no later than the 1:30. I would like to continue with our current license, our performing arts license, which has been granted to us, to the 2 a.m., which is consistent with what it's been in the past, and I would like to have that.
I thought we unstruck everything that dealt with Norva. So.
Well,
We added that you could only sell 1 hour before and 1 hour after, but no later than 1:30, so that's in each one of these.
Yeah, and pages 23 and 24, you'll notice that some of the existing licenses, such as the Norva, the National, the Altria Theater, the Dominion Stage, while you've kept those licenses, you have changed slightly the license privileges. So you haven't completely grandfathered those licenses, but you've kept the licenses intact, but changed some privileges. I don't know if that was your intent or not, but it is different from a complete grandfather.
If we just unstruck all the language from 602 to 610, that just keeps your thing the way it was?
That would keep it for the Dominion Stage and the Altria Theater. The language for the National and Norva is 611 through 622, and then Delegate Bell's facility in Waynesboro, 623 to 632, you added the same change to license privileges. And
so
whether that's your intent or not, I just point that out.
We would have to take care of that at, what will we do? It's already passed full committee, we would have to do that.
No.
It's already at full committee, we've already passed that here. Is it still here?
Well, it was reported out. Still changes some.
Okay, so how about this? I like it the way it's written, but I don't need a bunch of people nickel and diming my bill. It's already going to be hard enough to pass. So from a strategy standpoint, I would, I'm going to make a motion. The purpose of my motion is to restore the law to the way it was for all the existing licensees. substitute to restore the current state of the law for all the existing licensees. Well, what you just do is you would just unstrike all the stricken stuff and take out all the new stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
I got it.
Okay. Maria,
Yes, sir.
you got that? We don't need to adopt that, right? You're just gonna make that happen between here and full committee?
Well, I think we need to.
So we would go
Okay.
out that.
Okay.
Make a motion, I would say.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. Okay.
This is 602 through 630. Correct. Okay, thank you.
In other places too, right?
No, that's the only place.
Is that the only place
Yeah,
on
Mr.
130?
Chairman, that would be, yeah, because we just wanted it to be consistent, like when you, all the other, that we can that's all.
Right. What about line 640?
No, 640, well, that's the new license that's being created. So if you, I mean, the prior thinking, Mr. Chairman, was on, that you could do it on the dates for consistency among the licenses, that's why you did it. But if you want the live entertainment venue, you still could take that 130 provision out if you wanted to.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So 623 to 632 deals with annual mixed performing arts facilities,
Correct.
and we've added the 130 language.
Correct.
And line 615 to 622 deals with annual mixed beverage performing arts facilities, and we added the 130 language.
That's new.
I think we should get rid of everything that does not have to do with a live entertainment venue.
Okay.
That's what my motion is. Because otherwise, I'm gonna have all these people calling and knocking on my door.
So we're striking those included.
Yeah.
And even on the
Anything,
new license?
anything that is not specifically related to live
Okay.
entertainment venue, all the changes eliminated.
Right. Yeah.
I want to make sure we're clear, because I'm a little bit confused. All the 130s are going to 2 a.m.s. That's how I can understand it.
Essentially, what'll happen is all the 130s will go back to the existing law, except live entertainment venue will still be at 130.
So, Mr. Chairman, to make it easy, on page 23 and 24, from line 602 to 632, with the substitute, there will be no new language, no strikeouts. It will just all show up existing law. It's just from 633 to 640, that part will stay the way you're reading it. Okay. So we're unamending everything that came before 633 up to 602.
Okay, we're getting consistency here. Travis, did you have anything you want to add?
I think it's been addressed now, but was just going to point out that ABC currently sets those closing times based in the regs pursuant to the authorization we have in the code. So it would be a departure to start putting closing times in the code. So we set that currently. So I think what you've done is taken out all the 130s, which would then leave it to ABC's current regulations on the closure.
The intent is for the live entertainment venue, ABC can set whatever hours they want, but they can't set after 1:30 for a live entertainment venue.
So that would be the only place in the code where you put a closing time in the code.
Right.
You could, if you wanted them to, ABC could either change it in the regs, or you just say that they have to stop serving half an hour prior to closing time, and so that would then.
Well, the problem is I wanted to have a hard stop because I didn't want somebody to say, oh, I'm having 7 bands. You know, I have a show starting at 5 and it's 7 bands and we're going to 4 in the morning. So that's why I thought about having a hard stop.
Travis, what do your regulations say? Do you have a hard stop at 2 a.m.?
We do. It's in localities where the sale of mixed beverages has been authorized, you're not allowed to sell for on-premises sale and consumption between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Okay, so maybe we just, so let's do the first one first where we get my original motion, which we haven't voted on yet, which is to change it below from 602 to 632. Right? The motion is to get rid of all the changes from 602 to 632. That fixes the one issue about changing the rules for existing places. And then we can talk about the topic that Travis just brought up.
Okay. Got a motion, second. All in favor of that? Say aye. Aye.
Okay, now, second thing is, Travis is telling me something that I guess I knew, but I didn't think of. There may not be a reason to put a hard stop on lines 631 and 632, because there's already a hard stop at 2 a.m., and ABC could be more restrictive if they wanted to be.
Correct.
That's
So-
640.
So, yeah, excuse me, it's from 639 to 640. So if we just said 1 hour prior to such performance up to 1 hour after the conclusion of the performance period, instruct but no later than 1:30 a.m. That would,
But then you're granting up to an hour after performance. I'd have to figure out, law would take precedent over the reg, wouldn't it? Because they're saying, well, I'm entitled, if performance ends at 2, I get an hour to serve. I got a reg that says 2.
Mr. Chairman, can't you just say, but no later than 1/2 hour after, well, closing, we don't, but the conclusion of the performance?
I gotta have the conclusion of performance.
Yeah, I know, right, after, but no later than.
My industry counselor here has told me that the amphitheaters have a similar restriction now where they have to stop service 45 minutes before the end of the concert.
Right.
It's ABC practice, ABC practice, not code.
I hate that rule. Because it's just right when Iron Maiden's about to play the Trooper and I can't get a beer. Right.
Gotta think ahead, sir.
I agree.
Your hard stop's 2 a.m. right now, right? So what if I just change 1:30 to 2 a.m.? That would match with your regs,
Well, until I totally reform ABC and we can drink all night.
right? I think you're right. Okay, my motion is to change on line 640, 1:30 to 2 a.m.
All references.
All the references are gone now, the only reference is going to change it right there.
640 is the other reference. Okay, so Dave's motion is on line 640 to strike
1:30 and put 2.
strike 130 and put 2. Everybody understand? Okay. He's made the motion. Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. I think that's it, Dave.
Okay, so I guess I have to make, since we amended it, I have to make a new motion to recommend the board.
It's already, the committee's already recommended report where the substitutes.
Okay, so
He's the boss. I would really never.
I think the committee's already reported it out with substitute in the prior meeting. It was just a matter of defining the substitute was the attorney.
we know. All of ours is a recommendation.
Yeah.
So we'll have it before full committee next week. And Maria, you're certainly going to give it to the committee members to look at before then, and we'll verify it. Okay? Okay, that bill is now behind the subcommittee. And Delegate Alvo, you take that. I believe the last bill we have is mine. And Delegate Greason had to leave because of the basketball game. So without objection, we'll buy for the day on Greason's bill.
Yours is 2374.
Yes, sir. What this bill does is in Hampton Roads, y'all are familiar
Jude's Hospital in the state of Virginia builds, or gets someone to build one home a year, which they then, I believe, sell raffle tickets for. Okay, we've got a substitute, clean it up. I don't know why we needed a cleanup, since I blue covered this bill myself.
Okay, motion to adopt the substitute, is there a second? Moved and seconded to adopt the substitute, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the substitute is adopted. Delegate Knight.
Yes, what we do is the code today says you shall not conduct a raffle any more than once per calendar year by a qualified organization. The only person or entity that I'm aware of is St. Jude's Home. St. Jude's would like to do it maybe in Hampton Roads, maybe in Richmond, maybe in another location, because they certainly don't want to do two next to each other. So my substitute says 3 times per calendar year, no more than one such raffle shall be conducted in any one geographical region of the Commonwealth. And Maria fleshed that out for me. So Maria, would you describe a geographical region, please?
Mr. Chairman, I think in the code it recognizes 5 geographic regions in Virginia: Southwest, South Side, Northern Virginia, Tidewater, and Central Virginia.
We need to put a code reference.
There's not a definition, and when I search the code, we do a lot of things by representation, by geographic regions. I mean, we never get specific.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, that's what I want to do, is I want to allow, basically, the only one I'm aware of in the state that's ever done this, is St. Jude's Home. You know that they pay someone to build a house, they make a lot of money. It's a very reputable organization that's been in the state for a long time. I would like them to afford them the opportunity, 3 homes a year in entirely different regions of the state. And basically, that's all.
Any members have any questions of Delegate Knight? Anyone in the audience want to speak for or against? So motion on the bill, ready to report. Second to report, all those in favor recommend reporting say aye. Aye. All opposed? It reports. That's a good bill. What are you doing in the house?
And committee, if y'all will stay here, if that's all we have, meeting's adjourned.
No,
Okay, hold on.